Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services out of the great big town of Eastland, Texas. I tell you what, Texas is exploding. If you don't know where we are now, just wait 20 years. You probably will. Things are just happening like crazy around this place. Anyway, as I talk about Texas, I'm actually sitting in the great state of Montana where it's a little bit cooler this summer. I was married to a wonderful man that is from the state of Montana. He was crazy enough to move to Texas in 1996. And he thought he'd show up, I think he said, for the cool weather, the cold beer, and the pretty girls. But anyway, we go back and forth between the two great states, and we love it. And our marriage is a bliss, right? Marriage is supposed to be wonderful. It's like when you get married, you get this built-in dinner and a movie date and a never-ending dose of unconditional love, and not to mention a whole nother family, which, by the way, is very, very true in my situation. But then there are the things that, happen in marriage, such as, when I ask Brett, what do you want for dinner? And he says, what are my choices? And I tell him yes or no. Reality hits, right? Well, we could say that retirement is a bit like that. And so what I want to talk about today is kind of being new to retirement, whether you're recently retired, whether you're about to retire, whether you're considering retiring really in the next 10 to 15 years. And maybe you've been retired for a while. This still might be for you, but there's some blunders, some big blunders, wish somebody would have told me type things that are really important to know. And I've got a few of them. In fact, I have a total of 5 that I want to walk through with you today that I think would be very informational to empower you to make good decisions as you're preparing for retirement. Or if you're already retired, maybe you need to, amend or edit a few things. So let's get going. Number 1. The first of these big blunders in retirement is thinking that retirement is a windfall. Yes, it happens. I'm going to tell you who's the worst. Ranchers, farmers, and business owners. Too many people treat their first year to retirement like it is a windfall rather than a retirement. They kind of go on a spending spree because they have all this money. And I really think the reason that those 3 people that I talked about being notorious for this have that happen is because they spend their entire life spending when they have it and starving when they don't. They buy a new truck when there's cash and they don't want to pay taxes, or buy a new John Deere and they don't when they don't. But now you retire and you think you got all this cash and it's just part of that natural habit, but it's really not. It doesn't matter the season. The results of spending too much money in the early years of retirement can actually be very devastating to your long-term stability. Okay, so here's 3 things you need to think about or have, and maybe plus 1. First thing, you need a spending plan that your retirement nest egg can support. That's very important. Yes, I said a spending plan. If you and your advisor don't know what those first few years are going to look like in retirement, beyond that, you get yourself in a real bind. Yes, we talk about people having these go-go years, these slow-go years, these no-go years, but you can't have the pedal to the metal years continue through your go-go years or you're going to have a problem. You need to plan on this windfall type things that you're wanting to do because everybody has them. I want to do this, 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 or this. And inevitably those first few years of retirement may be more expensive. I'm not saying they will, but they may be, but you need to have all that in your plan. Number 2, you need to have an investment plan to support that spending plan. If you just have an investment plan that's set up and it doesn't support your income needs, you're in big trouble. I want to ask you, what happens if tomorrow we find out we're back in 2008 in a financial crisis and you just retired? Are you prepared for that? Is your income plan ready to support you? Or are you going to be, first of all, a nervous wreck, but more importantly, can your investment plan hold up through those periods of time? And a lot of people have a misconception that they need to be invested differently. Well, we'll get to that in just a minute, but that's not necessarily true. What's true is that you need an investment plan to support your spending plan. And number 3, what about a backup plan? What if something goes wrong? What if something doesn't go as you planned? What if it happens too soon in retirement? Yeah. And then there's that +1 I talked about. The number one thing you really need to do is have the discipline to stick to your plans. Yeah, I'm starting to sound like your mother. I know, but it's true. So there's your biggest blunder, treating it like a windfall. Number 2, the belief that your taxes in retirement will always be low. Oh my gosh, this is so great. People see they're on Medicare. They love it. Their taxes are lower, and it's not always true. Many new retirees actually do enjoy lower taxes in their early years of retirement because their income basically disappears off their tax return. But if you aren't careful, there could be quite the landmine of taxes in later years. And that's especially true if you're retiring in your early your 50s period, but your early 60s, and you're not taking Social Security, nor do you have taxable distributions from your retirement accounts. And all those things help to keep that tax bill low. But if you don't stop and take advantage of those years of lower taxation during your retirement years, then you may be hemorrhaging tax payments in later years when your Social Security and retirement or required minimum distributions kick in. We did a class at Texas Tech several years ago, and we went through some scenarios, and we had some, in particular, client families we were looking at that if we had done no planning, their tax bill was basically could go from 0 to over $40,000 a year. And then on top of that, increased Medicare premiums because of that. So it's a huge, huge, huge risk for your later retirement that your taxes are going to be higher. And you need to make sure that that is not you. And that's all to mention, not to mention that you don't lose your partner in life. Because there is such thing as a widow's penalty in this country when it comes to your taxes. And it's real and it hurts. So make sure you're prepared for that. Number 3. Taking Social Security too soon. Yes, there's a misnomer that you should start taking Social Security at age 62. And the reason I know that this exists is because approximately 1 in 3 Americans are proof of that statement. While that number should be far less than number 1. Because making that wrong decision about when to take Social Security could cost you an enormous amount of money in retirement. So first of all, if you think about Social Security, every year you wait, you get an 8% bump in that Social Security amount. And there is break-even maximization analysis that you can do that are unique to your situation. And you might find out that break-even may be in your early 80s. And if everybody in your family has lived to 85 or 90 and you're in good health, you might really want to think about what you're doing and what your strategy is there. And I don't know why. I think there's too many factors for people to really consider when they're taking Social Security. So they try to just do the easiest thing, or maybe they think that Social Security is going to run out. I obviously cannot make any guaranteed statements, but feel free to mark my words that they will probably tax your Social Security away from you rather than take it away from you, because that would be political suicide. However, we do know we just got this nice little discount for anybody over age 65, not even taking Social Security, by the way. So you don't have to take Social Security to get that nice little discount on your taxes if you qualify based on the Big Beautiful Bill Act. However, what you do need to know is you need to know what that maximization looks like for you. And that involves looking at your unique situation, including your health, your life expectancy, your marital status, your present, your future tax situation, just like we talked about, and your investment portfolio. So make sure you have a Social Security plan that works for you and you're not leaving tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because you just inevitably do the easiest thing there is to do. Or do what Frank does, your neighbor. No offense to Franks if you're listening to Life Planning 101. All right, number 4. So wait a minute, let's back up. We've talked about thinking it's a windfall. We've talked about belief that your taxes in retirement are always going to be low. We've talked about taking Social Security too soon. And now I want to circle into not thinking that you need to change your investment strategy. And a common misconception would be also thinking that you need to change your investment strategy, is because a lot of people believe that you need to you're retiring, you should lower your risk. Well, that may be true, but it might not be true. After all, you may be retired as many years as you have spent working. Have you ever considered that? My dad is always asking this question. Today, I can't speak like him. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. If that's true, how long will the rest of your life be? It could be a long time. And that means that your money still needs to be working for you in those future years as it does today. So if you take less risk, are you actually putting yourself at the risk of not keeping up with inflation? Could be, could not be. Yet, I say all this, and then I say in the same breath that too many retirees, or even soon to be retirees, don't even plan for something called the sequence of returns risk. I briefly hit on this when we talked about not having that income plan and not having an investment plan to support that income plan in retirement. And that has to deal with the sequence of returns risk. So in other words, you retire today, tomorrow we go through a 2008, 2009, your portfolio is not going to look near as good as someone that retires in 2009 and they subsequently have 2010 and 2011. And in fact, your portfolio may be at risk of actually you're running out of money in retirement, and their portfolio would not be if they had their plan in place. And why is that? That's called the sequence of returns risk. And there is ways to hedge that, not get rid of. You can't really get rid of any risk, but you can definitely mitigate things. And that kind of risk could be catastrophic to your retirement. Did you hear that? It's extremely important that you get your risk right in retirement for so many reasons. And so let's get on to number 5, setting yourself up for failure. Yeah. So I just read something kind of astonishing. And this was in a Forbes magazine, that retirees right now, there's a T. Rowe Price did this still, and around 20% of Americans have unretired by working full or part-time jobs. And I have to ask, is that because of what we just talked about? Possibly, and probably, but it also may have to do with what I'm about to tell you by setting yourself up for failure. And by the way, if you haven't read our article, Will You Flunk Retirement? You need to do that. We have some invaluable worksheets to help you through this area, because I'm going to tell you, most retirees are focused on one thing: retiring from, quote unquote, from something. This isn't every retiree. This is a lot. And I want you to ask you a question, is how much time have you thought about what you're retiring to, quote unquote? I'm not talking about golf. I'm not talking about travel. And I'm not talking about any other hobby. Maybe if it's a little labor intensive hobby, like, going to work for the local food bank and being able to support this cause, or going to teach, or, craft pottery, or if you never crafted pottery, it probably doesn't count because you might run out of energy or mojo to do that, or just decide you're really not good. But nonetheless, believe it or not, the newness of all these types of things, these so-called hobbies, wears off. It wears off pretty quick. And that's when you hear the stories of people just sitting down and dying. Yeah, I said it. My husband called me out for being blunt this morning. I guess it's just running in my veins today. But this is real. You have to ask yourself, how are you going to continue to use your God-given strength and talents? What will you do to continue to challenge your mind and your body? Okay, I can't say it right. Shows I'm such a numbers person. Is it Sudoku? Oh, I think that's it. Sudoku, right? I love it. I love it. In fact, actually, when I play it, then I tend to not be able to sleep at night. But there's crosswords. There's things that you need to be doing to challenge your mind each and every day. Are you continuing to do that? Read. I'll never forget when my grandmother told me she didn't read anymore, because that told me what was going on. And I knew that the end was inevitable. It made my heart break. So what are you doing to challenge your mind? What about your body? That was the other thing she told me. She didn't get out and walk anymore. She loved to walk. What activities will you focus on that will bring a sense of meaning to you? I mean, you've had meaning in your job or your career. You've had meaning. It doesn't matter what it is. You know that purpose, that drive that got you up every single morning. And if it was just to make a paycheck, then you went way too long. But remember back to those early days, because you really need to get it back if you haven't had a sense of meaning in a long time. And maybe that means doing something with your church. Maybe that means doing something with the youth in your community, or giving back, or doing something you've always wished to be doing, or consulting. I mean, what's wrong with the 20%? I actually think that 20% of America is going back and working part-time jobs. Rejoining the labor market is not a bad thing, because it keeps them engaged and doing something that's purposeful. And you retire, and too many people just don't have purpose. Then you have to ask yourself, what relationships will you lose organically because you retire? Your coworkers, right? In my case, heck, I hear this all the time of people that have retired from our business, and they miss our clients. Yeah. So where are you going to create new relationships? So I'll go back to that article, Will You Flunk Retirement? Pull it out. And we've also got some invaluable worksheets to help you through these areas of life. So again, one of my certifications is Certified Retirement Counselor. And they provided some really good tools that we share with our clients as they prepare for retirement. And I encourage you to do it. Even if you're retired already, do it. You need to see where you got these holes. It's good to know, because I think your inner health is just as important, if not more important, than your financial health altogether. I mean, what's the point of being retired if you can't even enjoy it? So have something to retire to. You know, I want to just kind of close out talking about the fact that there's a belief that most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do retirement. 1 to 2 weeks. Isn't that what you usually take in a vacation for? In a retirement, 20 to 40 years. That makes sense, right? Spend more time on planning that 1 to 2 weeks in that 20 to 40 years. And you know, and I think it's just because people are so excited. They're so excited about that vacation and getting that time off, and they want to make it so perfect. And retirement is almost like this let go. And so you feel like you don't have to really do anything, and you just get around to it while you're retired. But I disagree entirely. I think if you do it in that way, you could have these blunders happen overnight. So don't be a testimony to that statement. For your own sake, make a commitment to give your retirement plan the respect it deserves. And after goal, don't you have the same goal that most retirees do? And that's to retire successfully and stay successfully retired. And if that's the case, no planning is not going to work unless you got some crazy luck and you need to be rolling some dice in Vegas. With that, make sure you use our tools. Like I mentioned, they're there to help you. www.kennedy-financial.com. Sign up for our weekly life lessons. Explore that Will You Flunk Retirement. See those retirement worksheets. They're very helpful. Make sure you got that income plan, that investment plan put in place. Make sure that you know what your Social Security plan needs to be, and make sure you've got a great tax plan. Don't get hit by these big blunders, because they are the blunders that will send you back into unretiring, but it's going to be a forced situation, not because you want to. My name is Angela Robinson, again with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. God bless you. Have a great week, and joining us right here next week on Life Planning 101, where we're helping people live life on purpose.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.